What's up, Trunk Slayers? How's it going? So, I assume some of you have seen Monty Python, The Quest for Holy Grail. And in that movie, remember, we get to a point where some mud peasants contest with King Arthur how he's king. They didn't vote for him. And then later in the movie, we get to the wizard Tim, who guards the bridge that they need to cross to complete their quest. And so this was inspired by a Reddit post I saw. And so what I want to ask all of you is, when you're talking to your clients, are you the mud peasant or are you a wizard? And you've probably never really given a lot of thought to this. And you might be saying, no, I'm the wizard. But hold on, because you might not want to be. You may not want to be either one of them. And we're going to talk a little bit about how you communicate technology concepts to your clients. So the Reddit post in question, pretty good. The OP was basically saying, do but don't delve into the technical specifics. And they gave two examples, which I think very nicely bookend the wizard or the peasant concept. So on one was, if you explain everything in heavy technical detail as requested by the client, they're probably going to get confused and frustrated, or they're going to think this sounds complicated. You must know what you're doing. On the other hand, if you abstract the information too much and oversimplify it, the customer will get confused and frustrated. And when something else happens that is superficially similar, the customer may assume it's the exact same issue and may brush off your learned knowledge and wisdom. And I think this brings us to the challenge that many of us in technical positions face, not just in the IT space. I think this is a thing in any technical position, where if you're not careful, you end up being perceived by the client as either this all-knowing, almighty, unfathomably powerful, unrelatable wizard that lives high in their tower that can do just as much damage as they can do good, or you're the mud peasant in Monty Python, The Quest for the Holy Grail. You're pretty much not even above regard. Your opinions really don't matter. And why you even talk to me anyways? Get back to the fields, peasant. And you got to be careful, because it's super easy to fall into either one. And the ideal spot we want to be in is exactly in the middle. We want to be that trusted professional. If I keep with the medieval theme, we want to be like the blacksmith, or, we want to be the captain of the guards, or we want to be the local herbalist, or we want to be, the head cook in the kitchen, or even the court jester. We want to be somebody who is respected for our skill set and our knowledge, but is not feared and is not disregarded. And so how do you go about doing that? As this OP asked, how do you talk to people to not arrive at that? I think one of the things, and this isn't going to help anyone here who can't already. So anyone here ever struggle with social anxiety or confidence and have somebody who does have confidence tell you, just be more confident? Well, much like nobody in the history of ever being told to be more confident has been more confident, I understand that being told to be more approachable and relatable isn't just something you can turn on, but boy, does that help. And if you do have the natural ability to just get along with people and relate to them, that can make up for a lot, because the thing that really hurts you in both cases, whether your client perceives you as the wizard or as the peasant, is that either way, they feel like they can't really relate to you and interact with you on a peer level. And if you can overcome that, regardless of your ability to explain a technical issue, that will make up for a lot. But I don't think that's most of us, right? I mean, we're in IT for a reason. I hate to be, stereotyped there, but a lot of us IT people, we're nerds, and we like nerd stuff. And I could spend 2 hours explaining the premise of Warhammer 40k to you, and your eyes would roll back in your head, and you would cry and regret talking to me. And I think a lot of us are like that around our different areas and passions of technology. So what do you do? How do you avoid being the unapproachable, unfathomable, all-powerful wizard, or the barely below my regard peasant in the field harvesting mud? Well, I think there's a few things you can do. The very first one is you need to, and this is the most important one, The burden of communication is on the person communicating, not on the listener. And I know that's probably not the answer a lot of you want to hear. None of us want to hear that. But if you're trying to communicate a concept and your listener isn't understanding or getting it, that's your fault, not their fault. And even if your listener is being dumb or intentionally ignorant or not listening to you, anybody who is a communications expert would say the burden of that is on the communicator. So you need to look inward a little bit at your own skill set and pick some to refine. And I think given that we already talked about the fact that being charming isn't something that, is easy to learn, or if you're not already charming, you can't just turn on. What do you do next? And I think figuring out the way that the person you're talking to is most likely to ingest information and trying to speak their language is a very, very helpful bridge to kind of cross that gap between I know a lot about this subject, I'm not the best at talking to people, and I need to cross that gap. So the easiest way to do this, and if you're, especially, and this part is really probably more for the technician at the MSP or the help desk, but business executives generally really like to talk about their business. They get excited to talk about it. And yeah, as an MSP technician, you're more skewed towards the help and the peasant than the wizard in terms of the social construct. But in terms of having a conversation around your subject matter excellence, you can always start off by framing it around what they do for a living. And so I think understanding the business pain and how their business works and being able to relate the technology concept you're explaining back to that is always a safe way to go, as long as you do have an acceptable understanding of how their business works. And so one of the ways you can kind of get around that, and not in the moment, not when their password needs reset or when their printer's broken, but when things aren't on fire, ask them about their business a little bit. Have them talk to you. Learn a little bit about what's important to them and what matters. Pass that around to your teammates. It can be a really helpful way to frame a technological issue for somebody. If, I don't know, what kind of business do we all hate? If it's the dental office, and none of us here really love working with dental. So if it's a dental office and their firewall keeps dropping packets because, I don't know, they're being lightly DDoSed, some esoteric concept like that. Like, how am I going to explain to a client that you're not actively being hacked, but the IP range that you have from your ISP happens to be within a range that's currently being DDoSed, and that's causing occasionally your firewall to start dropping packets, and the internet goes out for a little while, and there's not really anything I can do to fix it right in the moment per se, and I know it's frustratingly, like, how would you explain that to somebody? And so relate it back to their business. Hey, you have a front desk, you have receptionists, they do intake for your patients, both in person and over the phone. What happens if for some reason 15 people walk in the door all at once? Can your receptionist address each one of them, at the same time? No, they can't. They have to do it one at a time. And it's possible while they're doing it one at a time that some of those people might get frustrated from waiting and leave. And that's basically what your firewall was just doing. Your firewall was saying, hey, I'm frustrated with all the people trying to talk to me at once. I can't get to you all in order. I'm sorry. And some of those people that were trying to talk to your firewall got aggravated and left. And that's a drop packet. And that's why the internet went out for a little while. And while that's frustrating, short of adding additional capacity on your network, there's not a lot we can do to fix it, and it's atypical, and it shouldn't happen too often. That kind of explanation sometimes can be acceptable enough for the average person in a business, and they oftentimes will appreciate the opportunity to relate it back to something they understand and they work with. You are going to have people that are going to ask for a more technical answer, and I think when that happens, especially if you've already given more of a simplified answer and they push you for, no, I want to know what happened, that's what I think you should do. So I've mentioned this in other videos that were really around more about solving business problems as an MSP. That a business is going to have a certain amount of risk or business problems they want you to offset, and you shouldn't just take them at their face value that they do or don't have a business challenge, or they do or don't have risk to offset without digging into it. And the kind of concept there was, as a customer, it's very easy to just say stuff, whether that stuff's true or not. And it doesn't mean it's malicious. It's very easy to say stuff. And a lot of times our clients say stuff because they don't know what to say and they think they're supposed to say something. So I would compare this a lot to if I knew nothing about cars, which pretty much I don't. And I don't know, I was getting my oil changed and I was standing in the room with the mechanic and it was an awkward silence and I don't know what to say. I might say something that I think is smart, but the mechanic's probably like, you dumb idiot. Like, I might be like, so buddy, how many quarts did you change? Like, who cares? Like, the mechanic, and in the mechanic's head, they're probably thinking like, this idiot. Customers do that. Like, we say things sometimes because we just need to say words. And so one of the things that I would do is, if your client is pushing you for a more technical answer, I would just politely check if they actually want that or if they're just saying that because they think they're supposed to ask you for it. And so if you gave somebody a fairly basic example and they're like, no, what happened? I would just be, if you're comfortable, I would just be upfront with them to be like, well, I can give you an extremely detailed technical answer. Is that what you want? Or do you just need me to clarify a little better what I already said? And let them pick one. There's an amazing thing about letting somebody else pick something, of giving somebody the illusion of choice and letting them pick what their option's going to be. At that point, the accountability is now shared. So if this is an interaction, once again, especially if you're a tech, where they pick the more deep dive answer and you go into it and their eyes roll back in their head, you do have that knowledge that, well, I did ask him to tell it to me this way. You know, I did say to Dean, let's jump on a call. Please explain to me the premise of, Warhammer 40K. I did technically volunteer to lose 2 hours of my day to that explanation. So the accountability there is shared. And that can be really helpful because a lot of people, when you say that, are going to basically in their head be like, oh, thank you. No, I don't want the full technical answer. I just wasn't quite understanding what you said before, and I felt like I should ask for more because I need to explain it to my boss. Oh, cool. Let me write it down for you. Let me give you some notes. Like, you know what I mean? So now you've uncovered what they actually need, and you can probably do that thing. Here's a copy of the ticket. Here's the description of what happened. Here's a checklist you guys can tape to the device that you could try to follow next time before you call us if you want to have some ownership. Any number of those things can come out of simply asking that clarifying question. And if you do have somebody that doubles down and they insist that they want the deep technical answer, yeah, there's a good chance they probably have no idea what you're talking about. But you might be surprised. Like, occasionally we've talked about in buying videos before that most people do not buy on features. There's a very small percentage of people at your clients that do understand the technology well enough where they may enjoy your explanation, even if they don't understand all the details of it. I'm one of those people, and those people exist. Like, there are people who are just kind of nerdy, like nerdy light, where, yeah, they're not going to understand all the technicalities and acronyms, but they're just going to kind of love the vibe of watching you passionately explain how something works in explicit detail. They'll pick up the 20% they do understand, and the rest is just sort of like, that's so cool, whatever he was talking about. That was interesting. That's okay sometimes. On the other hand, you're going to have people that are going to insist that they want that deep technical answer, and they're basically trying to, bluff you because they don't think you know. And in those rare cases where that happens, give them your explanation. Watch their eyes glaze over. Yeah, you're a wizard in a tower in that moment, but they kind of challenged you to sort of see if you actually could cast any spells. So cast a few. That's all right. Just don't go into every one of these assuming that it's an ego play and that everybody's trying to fight you like that. So I wanted to wrap this up with a quick note about imposter syndrome, because I think a lot of this is also made worse by imposter syndrome. Not enough of us in the management and leadership space remind all of you, the amazing people that work for us, that we hired you for a reason. And so today I want to be your MSP dad and remind you of that to all of the wonderful MSP employees at all different levels who in these moments question if they should even be in the room with the client talking about anything. Yes, you should. You were hired for a reason. And that reason might be that we saw a lot of potential in you to grow, or you're already really smart and knowledgeable. It doesn't really matter where you are in the journey, but you were hired for a reason. And you absolutely can handle this. And the person that you're working with, we trust you to work with them. That's why you're working with them. So please, in that moment, don't doubt that you belong in the room doing the thing that you're doing. You absolutely belong in the room doing the thing that you're doing. We wouldn't have put you there if you weren't. So at the end of the day, I think just be careful of that. Be careful of where you're falling on that spectrum of unfathomable, totally powerful, completely unrelatable wizard in a tower. Or if you're falling to the opposite end, the help, the peasant in the field, barely above my regard, just shut up and get back to the field. You really don't want to live in either one of those bookends very often. It's not how you form a healthy partnership with your clients. And it really won't ever get them to truly respect you because in either case, they're not relating to you as a trusted professional that is actually helping them. And remember, you don't need to be their peers socioeconomically or in sort of the social construct for them to respect you as a trusted professional. And, you think about other examples that we've been around trusted professionals, lawyers, doctors, etc. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I don't have a medical degree. I'm not a lawyer. I don't have a law degree. I'm not their peer, but I still feel that in their professional capacity, I can respect them as a trusted professional individual. And, that's the vibe we're going for here. And a lot of that ultimately is just about being honest, earnest, admitting when you don't know things, and just doing your best to try and treat every single client like an individual person that is doing the best they can to. Remember at the end of the day that clients often ask for things that they don't really literally want, but they don't know what to ask for. So they ask for weird stuff. Always good to get some context and clarify that. And if you can, throw on the charm. You can make up for a lot if you're just able to be friendly and relatable. Have a great rest of your week. I love that there's discussion going on about how to talk to our clients. We're in a customer service business, not the technology business. We forget that sometimes. And I think conversations like this are a good reminder that we support people, not stuff. And for the most part, MSPs, you're pretty good at that. Keep it up.